Coming to a YouTube channel near you.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome. Hello, little Twisted, Pacho, Rio. Hello there, John. Hello, Ange, Lori. Oh, everybody's starting to slide in on a Wednesday evening, broadcasting live from Texas. Hello there, Jacob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great there, Chris. As you can see, I have yet another different backdrop. I am still on my road trip, and right now I'm in Ohio at a friend's house and pseudo family. I wanted to start right away with sharing something right before I came on air. I have two wonderful children that have adopted me as their grandma, and when they heard they gave me, I don't know, to show this up. It's a little angel pin, Angel of Strength. This is from the two kids, they're 9 and soon to be 11 years old. And I'm like, oh, you are so enlightened already. And they also gave me this it's a worry stone, but it's just this beautiful jasper.
Oh, I love worry stones.
Like, oh my God, don't make me cry. It's going to mess up my makeup.
Right. I love worry stones.
So sweet. But, it really reminded me that children come in so pure. They're able to be in tune with spirit. And it's so important for us to do whatever we can to encourage them and to keep that curiosity and that openness alive and as open as long as possible, and to encourage their spiritual gifts and to really listen to them and acknowledge that they're so intuitive and so right on in what they're doing. And so I just want to put that out there right away to start, so that was, I want to share that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how about you? How was your week since last weekend?
Doing good. I got to Texas early this morning, about 5:30, 5:45 a.m. So,
Cool.
yeah, so we're getting ready to do some filming and some other stuff this week, and going to do that, some paranormal, and then we're going to go to Michigan next weekend. Then after that, we're going to go back to Kentucky, and we've been invited to do some filming on a ghost hunt with some famous people that's coming into Southern Kentucky. So we're going to do that. We're going to make the announcement probably this week on who that's going to be. And then we're going to go back to Texas, and we're going to hit Oktoberfest, and we're going to go, I don't know where. So I got to talk to my production marketing executive and figure out where we're going to go from there. So it's just like, it never stops. And I got to get with you because we got to talk about some things, and we got some other things in works, and it's just been nonstop, just like you've been traveling. So how's your journey been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. I was last time we filmed, I was in a closet. You remember that?
Right. Right.
Right before the wedding of my cousin, and that was just fabulous. And on the way back here, I actually did, I'll call it some rescue spirits, just ministering, I guess we'll call it, because a dear friend of mine, her brother died suddenly last week. And so I went and I spent a couple of days with her. And, it made me, obviously I tuned in and got messages and that sort of stuff for her. But it also made me realize that I don't think we as a culture talk enough about the pervasiveness of spirit and our loved ones in spirit after they've moved on, how much they're still a part of our life. And one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight was the signs that, so many people just miss, right? I was walking with my friend, and there was a feather on the ground, and I'm like, oh, there's a feather. And whenever I see a feather, especially if it's not like near a bird aviary or something, right? If you're just randomly walking and you see a feather and it's a beautiful, pristine feather and it's just laying there, that's one of the signs I have. It's usually my dad, but it could be anybody. But spirits sometimes do that way. I have another friend that whenever she finds a dime in a really weird place, she knows that's her mom. Birds are huge signs for people, like a hawk coming by and swinging by, like almost swooping overhead. But is a sign for yet another friend of a loved one. And my friend just handed me the feather that we found today.
Right, absolutely. And I tell you one thing I like to caveat with you on that too is that a lot of people don't understand signs because loved ones do that. But another thing I find out helping people spiritual with people that has passed on is that they also have to let their loved ones go.
Yes.
Because I dealt with somebody not too long ago is that the wife lost her husband and she was so heartbroken, right? And so distraught. And the husband was like, I cannot move on because she won't let me go. And I had to counsel her. And it's like, he's trying to go on to his journey, but he can't because you keep calling him back. And, and that is something that a lot of people don't understand. What is your take on that?
Well, what I tell people is at least time is very different on the other side of the veil in here. And so I told my friend, I said, don't try to call and get in touch with your brother immediately. Give his soul a little time to transition. I can tell you right away. I can see it was your grandfather who claims he helped raise him, who helped him across. I can see your daughter who was also there on the other side to help him. But his soul needs a little time to kind of do its own life review, to figure out like, okay, I had an agenda, a purpose coming into this life. Did I fulfill it or not? And, so they need a little time for that before we're yanking on them and calling them and asking for stuff. However, very often when a spirit has left or in the process of leaving, we know that they will leave signs, right? I a friend this morning, and she had a dear relative pass. And just about the time that the relative passed in the hospital, she noticed a light was on in the house that's not normally on, and nobody took credit for putting it on. And it was like 5 minutes within when this gentleman passed. And she just had this warm feeling and knew like, oh, that was him coming to say goodbye. Like that presence was there. And so I hear those kind of stories a lot that people will know like, oh yes, I dreamed. And in my own one of my most profound stories I have is when my mom and I were on vacation. We were on a cruise. My mom had a terrible accident and had to be airlifted off. And she was in a hospital overseas, and I couldn't get off the boat because of certain rules. I had to wait until we got to port, and we were in the middle of crossing the transatlantic. And so I'm praying, I'm worrying about it. And I had a sense of when I thought she was going to pass, which happened to be the same day she gave birth to my brother. I'm like, wouldn't it be interesting if she died on the same day that she gave birth to my brother? But anyway, so that was kind of there. But that morning of September 24th, actually, on that morning, I was dreaming, and I dreamed of my Uncle Mike, who was her favorite brother-in-law. And he was at the Polish Community Center, which is a place whenever we had the big parties. And he's there behind the bar, pulling out 2 at a time bottles from behind the bar and putting them on big round tables. And he sees me and he waves across the hall and he says, "Hey, dear, big homecoming party today." And I woke up to the phone ringing of the hospital telling me my mom had just passed. And I was like, but it was like the perfect, of course I'm devastated. Of course it was, traumatic, but it was also Spirit's way of preparing me and trying to put it in perspective. So very often spirits will send us dreams. They will give us signs. I had one client, her father had passed and they were really close. And he had this sense of humor. Well, this guy for about a month kept opening up cabinets in the workshop. And so we go and close all the cabinets. And next day she'd come in there and no one else was physically in there. And she'd come in and at least one and sometimes 2 or more cabinets were open. And she's like, "Dad, stop already. I got it. You're here. We're good." So I know that Spirit gives signs. I know also that eventually I was telling my aunt about some spiritual stuff when I was down at the wedding. And because she was asking me who was at the wedding, like who attended from Spirit, because I could sense there were certain loved ones in Spirit who had come to be there for the wedding. And so I rattled off the few. And then I said, I can't remember the last time I saw my mother's father. I see my grandmother sometimes, but my grandfather on my mother's side, I can't remember the last time I perceived him or felt his energy. And it was like, oh, well, he's just moved on, you know? So, you know, sometimes there's no need. And especially if there's other spirits that were left behind that are kind of looking in on family and whatnot. They're like, hey, you got that covered. I got other things to do. And their soul evolves and goes on to whatever is next for them. But she was so worried. She's like, oh my God, do you think he's in the bad place? And that's why he's not around. I'm like, no, don't even put that out there. There is no bad place. You know, it's just the other side of the veil. You know, don't even put that in your mind or worry about that. You know, all of a sudden she's so worried, like her father is like, you know, in hell. I'm like, no, he's not in hell. Don't worry about that. But yeah, you're right. You know, and I find that most spirits will stay around us until they'll check in on us and make sure we're okay. But
that is correct. Yes.
I also know a lot of spirits will not cross over. I had a client that came to me to get in touch with a loved one, and his grandmother came through and said, stop being so guilty that you weren't with me in the hospital room when I died. And he's like, oh my God, you know, he starts crying and he's like, I was traveling across country trying to be there when she passed. And, you know, we were so close and I was her favorite grandson. And I feel so terrible I wasn't with her. And she told me, and I told him, I said, she would not have been able to pass if you were there.
Right.
Your connection and love would have held her and not allowed her spirit to go. And we hear the stories all the time, you know, so you're on the deathbed watch with somebody. It's when you go to the bathroom that they die.
That is
you
correct.
Go to have coffee that they die, right?
That is correct.
Like, right? Because those attachments make it a little too hard for them sometimes to be able to let go. Unless we can be enlightened enough to say, it's okay, go to the light, go do what you have to do. We're going to be fine. And we kind of reassure them as they're on the way out, like, it's okay. But so many people like the whole time, oh, hang on, fight, stay. I'm like, what are you doing? Let the poor person go. Let them go to the light.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so you find that too then, right?
No, absolutely. And somebody said in the comments, I don't know who said it, you know, it's us being selfish. And I do agree with that. And I understand why people say that. And like I say to people in private, you know, cherish what you have today because tomorrow is not promised, right? We hear that all the time.
Oh yeah, you never know.
No, you don't. And we hear this when I counsel people and when people come to me for readings and I do tarot and whatnot, is that people will say, you know, it's okay. I know what you did for me. And just because they're not coherent, they still understand because when they cross, they give messages. So just think about that, ladies and gentlemen. They do know.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we have to understand is how the limitations that we have in the physical plane don't exist in the spiritual realms. So the way that I try to portray it sometimes is imagine we are this tapestry with all these threads that are soul, all these threads. And one of these threads for me right now is named Alethea, and it's here on the physical plane. There's still my soul that has access to all the past and future and whatever other present lives may be going on someplace else that's not in my awareness. But once you're in that spiritual realm, you can follow those threads down and you can be every place, every time. So wherever you need to be. So you can check in on not just your husband or wife who's left behind or your children you can go and check in on all of them. And so it's not uncommon for somebody to say, hey, I just had a dream or I had this vision or I had this sense that Pop was there. And like all the brothers and sisters go, oh my God, I did too, right? I actually just had I don't know if I shared this in a previous one, but it's a short story. I was dreaming in my house of one of my dogs named Ginger had come into this new house where I'm living. And she's walking around and I know she's dead. So she died about 4 years ago. She was 17-year-old. She was an amazing Chow Shepherd Lab mix. She was the most loyal, wonderful. She gave me every ounce of possible of her life. She was amazing. So I see her in this dream And in the dream, I'm like, Ginger, what are you doing here? Wait a minute, you can't be here, because I knew she had passed. And so in the dream, I'm grabbing other people saying, do you see her? Can you see her too? In the dream.
Right.
And I wake up and I was like, okay, that was interesting. That was on my husband's birthday. And I wound up the following weekend going over to a picnic they were having to celebrate his birthday. And I start to tell the story. And my husband has remarried. And so the husband and wife are looking at each other and their eyes got wide. And they're like, you're kidding. On that same day, he had a dream that Ginger had come to their new house, was walking around. And in the dream, he's like, Ginger, what are you doing here? And he almost did the same thing, like trying to find like somebody else to say, are you seeing her too? Like, how are you here? Because we know you're gone on the other side. So she came to visit both of us. And I told him, I said, look, she probably was coming to wish you a happy birthday and was in the neighborhood. So she just swang by and said hi to me too. But they can do that, whether they're the animal loved ones, because their spirits are so connected to us, or the human physical, people that we know, when they're on the other side, they can do that, but they're not limited. They don't just have to be at one person at one time. They can be, they're like the champs of bilocation, except it's not bilocation. It's like multi-location. Wherever they need to go, they can be, right? So it's
yeah, cool. I tell people, and I know people laugh at me, and if you're watching and we talk, it's like Star Trek, right? It's like they can beam me up, Scotty, and it's like they're here 1 second and there in another. So I know people are probably laughing like, Grizzly, really? That's the best way I can explain it. I mean, it is. They can be at my studio right now in Texas, and they can be with Alethea right now. It just like that. It's just the way it is, people. So
but if you think about it too, everything's in that quantum field, and there is no time space aspect to the quantum field. It's every place, every time, all at once. And so whether it's spirit coming through the veil on that side, or us expanding our awareness out into it through using our spiritual gifts and our intuition, it doesn't matter. We're able to still access it, which is why we can do things like explore and do regressions to explore past lives, or explore other aspects of gifts and abilities we need now, or even, why not, go get a future one and say, let's see, what can I grab from that to help me be better now, and maybe prepare myself for that lifetime to be even better or be more equipped, right? But I think it's easier conceptually for people to grasp going back in time, because things are familiar. Where when you think about the prophets and the seers over the centuries and millennium who have been able to look forward, when you read their descriptions of things, they didn't have a frame of reference for it. So if you were to project yourself to a future lifetime 1,000 years from now, most things would be so unrecognizable to you, it really wouldn't be that useful. But it would be interesting, right? And how do you make sense of it? So
no, absolutely. Sweetly morbid bear. Dreams are easiest for spirit to convey messages. Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that, Sweetly, is that a lot of people get a lot of messages through dreams, but they don't understand that. And that's why we always tell people to keep a dream journal by your bed. That way, when you dream, write it down. Now, I'm not saying, ladies and gentlemen, that all your dreams are going to be from messages from loved ones that passed. I'm not saying that. Grizzly's not saying that. I am saying that sometimes your loved ones that have passed, friends or family, will come to you in dreams. I'm just saying that. So, yes.
Yeah. And I have this, for anybody who's listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, I have this great tip for you. When you are getting messages or impressions and you want to you feel compelled to share it with somebody, but you don't want to say, I have this information for you, because it might freak them out, right? Our culture is so open to dreams, and it's just a little bit of an exaggeration, because a vision is basically a waking dream, right? So you can communicate the messages that you want to give people and say, I had this dream, and in the dream I saw or I got this message, or your grandpa came to me. So you don't have to say, I see the spirit of your grandfather standing next to you, and he has this message, blah, 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 and you give it. You can say, I had this dream and I saw your grandfather and he said, blah, 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 blah. people are so open and receptive to the dreams. So it allows you to deliver the messages you need to. It gives you the opportunity to kind of do your side of the deal, right? Because if you get a message, you were kind of incumbent on us to share it. And it's not like a big risk to say, okay, I need to tell you something. I see dead people. No, you don't. You don't have to do that, right? You can just say, "Here's the dream," and you can give them the message, and that can also build your confidence, because then when they receive that message, they're going to go, "Wow, that's so deep," or "Oh my God, that's exactly," or you can even describe what you're seeing, but you say, "In the dream, he looked like this and this and this," or hey, did your grandfather used to play the piano? Because I had this dream, and this guy that said he was your grandfather was playing the piano, and his favorite song was The Entertainer from the Sting, and he loved playing that movie theme song, and he was great at it, and then he had this message for you. Well, again, you don't have to have them buying into a belief system. People just love to hear about dreams. So anyway, that was a little tip there that gives you a chance to exercise your spiritual muscles and use your spiritual gifts without blowing your cover, so to speak, and potentially freaking out people that might need the very messages that you're getting from spirit to give them, but you're delivering in a way that is useful and open to them. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. 27 years ago, this lady I knew went through a horrible divorce, and husband was very abusive and left her in a financial wreck. And make a long story short, she was ready to lose her house, and she kept dreaming of her dad that passed 7 years prior. And her dad kept telling her to go out in the garage and rip up this back wall in the far left-hand corner, and you're going to find something. And she kept saying, I've dreamt this for like 2 or 3 weeks. Every night he kept saying this over and over and over. And she said, what was it? She said one night, it was a Thursday night. She said, finally, I got up. It was like 2:30. I went out there with a hammer, and I started tearing the heck out of this drywall. And she found $15,000 in cash.
Woo! Wow.
It caught up all of her bills. It caught up her house payments. She saved her car from being repossessed. And I'm just telling you,
awesome.
The dreams are true, right? And I tell people, and also, I don't know what you think, but I tell people, if you dream something that's the same thing over and over, stop and think about it, because also we have spirit guides, right? They're also try to give you messages, and you have to think and listen to something about that. So I tell people stuff like that, and they look at me like, what? I'm like, yes, they do. But I'm just saying.
And even if the dream is your subconscious or your superconscious mind trying to give you the message, and it's over and over and over again, it's really important to figure out, like, okay, whoever it is, whether it's the loved one in spirit, an angel, a guide, an aspect of yourself, because, our brains take in so much more of what's happening around us, but we only process consciously very little of it, just the tiniest little bit, in comparison to the millions of bits of data per second that are flooding into us. And obviously, we wouldn't be able to function if we were consciously trying to be aware of those millions of bytes per second of information. But it's there. And so on those levels of subconscious and superconscious, we can be processing stuff, and in the dream come up with the useful information. And that's the vehicle to bring it to our awareness in a way that's not overwhelming to our system. And so, definitely, if you're having repeat dreams, and sometimes it could be like a minor variation. It could be like, I dream of a Christmas tree, and then I dream of a chestnut tree, and then I dream of an oak tree, and then I dream of a palm tree.
Right.
It's like tree, so it's a little different each time, but there's something about trees. Like, okay, well, what do trees mean to you? And what's going on, whatever. Have you always wanted to plant an orchard and you've been dragging your feet? I don't know.
Right.
Whatever. You know how dreams work. There's no book on dreams that's worth buying out there, guys. Save your money, because the signs and the signals that you have are unique to you. And if you ask somebody, say, well, I dreamed last night of all these flipping trees. What do you think it means? I'm like, I turn it right back onto that. Well, what do you think trees mean? Because it was your subconscious and your superconscious or your guidance system that sent it to you. So what do you think it means? That's the most valid opinion, not what does the dream book say a tree means. Come on. Who knows?
No, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, there's some people that were like, hey, Grizzly, I want to talk about my dream. I'm like, sure, tell me about it. And I'm not a dream expert by any means. Right. And they'll tell me about their dream. I'm like, oh, well, you ate before you went to bed and you watch a horror movie. And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, I'm just saying, not all dreams are a message, right? Because if you eat before you go to bed, sometimes you have dreams. It may not be the right dream, but I'm just saying. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just keep a dream journal and see if there's a pattern. And because like you're saying, sometimes there are messages. And it's weird because you're talking about coins, right? And I was talking to Kelly Joe about this earlier this year. I wear a lot of sweatpants shorts around the studio and around the house. And I never have pocket change. And I went to go take a shower and I took off my shorts and like 3 shiny pennies out of nowhere. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, come on. I'm like, come on. I'm like, really? I'm like, shut the front door. And I was like, that is a sign and a half, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm like, I never carry change. And awesome. I mean, I debit card, everything, right? PayPal, Zelle, whatnot. So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's awesome. That's awesome. But, one thing with coins, too, I always tell people, look at the date. Because sometimes the year of the coin will also be an indication.
I never thought of that.
Of who it's a message from, right? And because it's like, oh, that's the year my father was born, or that's the year my mother died, or that's the year
that is a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So always check that out when you get a coin, because you just never know, and it'll surprise you, because if it's meant to be a message, you want to be able to connect with. Well,
why did I think of that?
I don't know, because I'm on the show and I had to tell you.
Yeah, right. Why did I think of that? Nobody's never told me that, because I saw a penny today, right, when we was out shopping, and I was like, heads up, pick it up, tails down, never lay it down, or whatever. And I was like, I wanted to pick it up, and I was like, wait a minute. I mean, and I didn't, and now I regret it because I was like, whatever. But now you said that, and I'm like, huh.
I've heard a similar saying, but what I do instead, if it's laying face down, I go over and I turn it over and I say, I make my own destiny. And I
bravo. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Because I honestly believe that anything that comes into our awareness is there for a reason. Because again, right, we have over 1 million bits of info coming in at once. So why do I notice that penny on the ground, or that quarter on the ground, or that dollar bill on the ground, or whatever it is, right? Why did I notice that versus just anything else? So there must be something to it. So I try to honor that as much as I can and dig on in. But
that's interesting. I like that.
They're around us all the time, and understanding it and keeping the journal, because you're right. Sometimes it's like pieces of a puzzle, and like dreams are very much so. It's like watching a mini series. You don't get the whole story all at once, right? You got to watch all the episodes. And by the time you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's how it all fits together, right? So it's like.
No, absolutely. And I totally concur with you on that. And a lot of people that we talk to after about a month or two will come back. They're like, I went back and looked at my dream journal, and there is a pattern. And so, I'm glad you said that. Absolutely.
And if for those of you who are parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles, and you're around young children, really pay attention to the dreams that they share with you, because again, they are much closer and much more open to a lot of the spiritual stuff. And so, like, write it down, for yourself, for them, but pay extra attention if one of your children that are in your life is sharing a dream with you, because they very often can give you even more pieces of the puzzle in a much clearer way, because of the purity of their spirit and the closeness to spirit that they are. Okay.
Yeah, and one thing that I like when you said that, a lot of people don't understand. We are born, right? And we are so pure.
Yeah.
We see spirit, we're born. And this is where I tell people we lose the psychic abilities, right? We lose abilities as we get older. So when the kids say that we see grandparents or whatever, they don't know that they're gone, or they see spirits or
Right.
little children, or they have their little playmates or fake friends. They actually do. So
Yeah. So encouraging that versus trying to shut it down is one
right.
of the best gifts you can give them. And you can also explain to them that, maybe not all your friends have that same gift that you do. Just like some kids are really good at soccer, and some kids are really good at playing an instrument and band, and you're just really good at seeing some of the things there. And so if you're sharing it with your friends and they're not seeing the same thing you are, that's okay. That's not their gift, it's your gift. And so
Right.
helping them to own it as a gift, not be just something weird about them, right? And help them really understand that it's normal, and it's a beautiful gift that they have, and that you encourage it as well, right? And I think that's important.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right. So I did pick some messages for today for the group. So if you're tuned in today, this is for you. And if you're tuned in a year from now or a month from now, this is also for you. Because if you found this channel and you're watching this episode, this is for you. So
Awesome.
The very first card is celebration. It's an angel. Let's see. Like there, it's celebration.
There you go.
Okay. So it says it's time for you to look for joy, the delight and wonder of every day, and rejoice in it. All right. So this is a time when there's we talked about, I think last week, this is a time there's so much contention, and it's so incumbent on us as light bearers to shine our lights, to add benevolence to the world, to do those random acts of kindness, to really share our love and light with all of our brothers and sisters, anybody we interact with. The more we can add goodness and happiness and joy to somebody's life, the better. And as we're in that path of service, it brings us joy and fulfillment from our soul. But there's also this whole reminder of take the time to celebrate. So many people get hung up in what's the next hurdle? What's the next hurdle? Milestone, next hurdle, milestone, next hurdle, that they forget. It's like you're running a hurdle race and you cross the finish line and you don't even stop to check your watch to see like, wow, I have a personal best here. It's like all of a sudden you're running a new race with more hurdles again. It's like time out. We are meant to be much more joyful, right? When we're in balance, when we are living that authentic life, we're self-aware, we're being in service to others, we're living our soul's purpose. There is a joyfulness that comes from that. And taking the time to celebrate the milestones and celebrate your victories, celebrate with others, celebrate and be joyful when somebody around you, even at work, somebody else gets a promotion. Don't be there grumbling like, I wish it was me. No, be happy for them. Somebody hits a lottery ticket and that's a winner near you. And you're like, oh gosh, I was behind them online. It could have been me. Yeah, okay, you could do that. But so much better to feel this, wow, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And mean it. When we can be in a place of joy for our brothers and sisters, because we see them as aspects of ourself, and the more that we celebrate them, there's a part of that makes us feel good too. It's really, really important. And that leads to the next card, which is giving and receiving, right? It's this whole balance. If we're not willing to give when we have of what we have no right to be asking, right? It's this flow. It's this give and take in relationships and in life of more generally, what are we giving to the world? What are we putting out there? How are we sharing our gifts? And what are we receiving so that we can give even more, right? It's this wonderful dance that happens. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed or stuck, I tell people all the time, find a way to serve, do things that bring you joy, celebrate other people as well as yourself. And I don't care if the celebrating yourself is you give yourself that glass of wine after your to-do list is done at the end of the day and you're like, dang, I kicked butt today. Look at all I did. but you take that moment to truly go, you know what? You did good today. Good. Thank you, Spirit, for helping. Thank you for helping me stay focused. Thank you for whatever, giving me the energy. So I got all this stuff done because you know what? Now that I got all this done, I can go play tomorrow, right? I got the work done. Now let's go play. So it's important to have that because trust me, I used to be a bit of I'm still a little type A, but I had a corporate life, right? I would get up before the crack of dawn. I'd do stuff. I had an hour commute, long time at the office or traveling a lot for business. And it was just like, go, 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 go. And it was always like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And then you burn out and you're like, or you finally get to a vacation and you're looking forward to that vacation and you're so flipping exhausted by the time you get to the vacation. You're like, I can't really even enjoy it as much as I wanted because I just want to sleep. You guys go play. I'm going to just rest here for a while, right? So it's so important to have that balance in our lives, and that giving and receiving, just from a spiritual point of view, is really critical. At least that's what I think. What do you think about that, Chris? Any thoughts?
No, absolutely. And a lot of people is saying that they are a terrible receiver, and I am too at times. And I actually fall short in a lot of ways what you're saying, and I can always improve. And I don't thank Spirit enough, and I don't think my guides enough. And then a little twisted and is saying yes, saying and they're agreeing with you. But we also need to be humble, right? And
Yes.
I totally concur with everything you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just on my screen, but I'm like this big fuzz. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, no, you're perfect.
Okay.
Crystal clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just my screen. So that's cool. Well, I want to talk about receiving a little bit. And I think I have something that Spirit taught me a while ago about receiving. Two things that helped me feel much more comfortable. First of all, if you're in that balance of giving and receiving, you feel like, oh, it's just natural, right? It's give and take, like in a relationship. Because if you're the one saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you all the time, and you never hear it back, I don't know how long that relationship is going to last. Because eventually you'll be like, well, geez, how come I'm the one saying it all the time and they're not there?
Right. Absolutely.
But so I was horrible at receiving help. I was the Energizer bunny. I did everything for everybody else. I was always there for everybody else. I never had anybody do anything for me because I didn't need to. I was very independent. Right. I was powerful. I was all the nice things that, stopped me from asking for help. And then I got hit by a car and I had knee surgery. And I needed help to go to the flipping toilet. Okay. I mean, talk about humble,
Right.
humility, right? It's like, I couldn't take a shower by myself. I needed help. I couldn't carry anything. I could barely get myself up a flight of stairs, let alone carry the laundry basket, carrying groceries, So all of a sudden I had to start and I asked Spirit, and they're like, 1, you needed to slow down. 2, you needed to stop being spiritually selfish. I said, what? What do you mean spiritually selfish? They said, look, don't you feel good when you do something for others? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So why are you depriving those other people? Why are you being so selfish in depriving the other people in your life from feeling that same joy by receiving what they're able to give to you?
Oh,
whoa.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I never looked at it that way, that was actually me being spiritually selfish because I wasn't giving them the same opportunity to have the joy and feeling good because they were able to do something for me. And we live in a culture that's very much based on reciprocity. And
That's
so
true.
if it's all about me doing for you, me doing for you, me doing for you, and I never do anything back, it makes the other people feel uncomfortable. And it's like, so Spirit basically, gave me a good spanking on that one. And ever since then, I'm like, you know what? You want to do something nice for me? Thank you so much. I am so happy to receive whatever you want to do for me, whether it's help, you want to give me a little gift. And you know what? Even if somebody gives you a gift that you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with this thing, right? The fact is their hearts wanted you to have that. They want to give something to you. You take it, you say, thank you so much. And then You figure out what you would do with it later, right? But you honor the act of their love, the generosity of their spirit, and their really wonderful, well-intentioned meaning of giving something to you, and you honor them by receiving that. So anyway, I had to get this as a big lesson by getting hit by a car. So hopefully all y'all have just heard what I just said, and you'll be like,
did we not just cover this on another show? Did we not just cover this on another show?
Oh, did you?
No, is this deja? A little twisted.
Deja vu, because
Amy, is this deja vu? I mean, hold up now. I think I could have swore we talked. Did we not? It was you. I could have swore this was you, because people were saying I feel guilty that people are doing things for me and I'm not doing anything for them. And it's like, no, this is your time. I'm going crazy. I don't know. I'm going crazy. Amy's laughing like, ha, Grizz. I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe.
Hey, I believe in deja vu. I think some really profound, very clear ones. And that just makes me smile, because I see how then, that's always confirmation to me that I'm doing what I was supposed to be doing, because it's coming around full circle. So
see, a little twisted saying deja vu, having it too. I could have swore we had this with you on the show.
You have the tapes. We can always check it.
I know. I'm sitting there going, we just had this with you. And I'm just like, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Grizzly's losing his mind in Texas. So everything's bigger in Texas. But yeah, I was just like, huh. Yeah. But yeah, I just like, I guess she's talking. I'm like, huh. Anyways.
All right. So a couple other messages for today. And these are kind of the first one was right in line with the celebration. It's the Ace of Cups, and this is about joyfulness, share. But the importance of cups is sharing, right? What's the point of having a full cup if you don't share what you have with other people, right? And the corollary is, if your cup is empty, if you're exhausted, if you have no gas in your tank, if you have no money in your bank accounts, you can't share of your time or carpool or buy groceries for somebody else who might be in need if you don't have your basics met, right? So this is just reminding everybody, you know what? Get your own house in order, enjoy what's there, nurture yourself, sleep, eat well, exercise, be the strongest, best version of you can be, and then you can offer much more to the world, right? So that's the first one. The second card, it's one of my favorite cards, because this is such a great reminder. It is, don't keep on taking on other people's drama, and stop picking up the messes of other people that should be accountable for cleaning up their own mess.
True.
Do not take on the consequences, prevent people from having the consequences of their deeds or their choices, right?
So true.
We may want to, we may think we're being helpful, but don't do that. And then the last card is strength. And sometimes it takes as much strength to be able to have that tough love and say, you know what? You dug that hole, dude. Sorry. I'll be here, but I'm not jumping in with you. I'll throw you a rope. I'll tell you how to get out. I'll even get your ladder. You got to climb. You got to do the work. You got to get out.
Yeah, I agree with you, because, if they don't learn what they cause themselves, they're going to keep repeating it over and over. And sometimes they have to learn how to get out of that hole on their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the best, this is a very graphic story that I used to tell when I was doing life coaching with somebody who was an enabler, who they just couldn't understand this card of, it's really important to hold people accountable for their own choices and consequences. And so Spirit showed this to me, and it was a little gross, but I think it makes the point. And once you hear it, you'll never do that again to somebody else. So what they showed me was there was a woman, her sister was an alcoholic, and she came in and she was drunker than drunk, right? And she's on the couch, and the sister's like, oh, I'll get a blanket for you. I'll cover you up. That's fine. And somewhere in the course of the night, the woman barfs, all over this nice rug next to the couch in the living room where she was sleeping. And that woman, the sister, her first instinct was to clean up the mess, because I'm not just going to leave that sitting there all night.
Right. Right.
Because you know what would happen if you clean up that mess, and when your sister finally sobers up the next morning, she's oh yeah, I kind of remember, did I get sick last night? Oh, I'm sorry about that. And she'll just go on her way. There's no lesson. There's no consequence. But if you basically throw a towel over it, and when she sobers up in the morning, you hand her the scrub brush and the bucket and say, you clean up that mess you made last night. And now here she is, probably wanting to get sick again and clean up the stuff that's there. Now she understands the consequence of her drinking and that alcoholism. And she is much more likely to have the realization of, oh man, I need some help. I better stop this, right? But if you cleaned up that mess for her and it's just like it never even existed, you have just deprived your sister, your brother, your friend of that lesson. Don't do that. So anyway, that was, I know it's kind of graphic, but boy, it made the point to the client, and it made the point to me, like, it's a little extreme and it's really disgusting, but it definitely makes the point. We cannot take on other people's lessons because we're depriving them of a lesson, right? If we take on the consequences, if we clean up the mess for them, they're never going to learn, right? And
there's nothing wrong, and I totally agree with you. There's nothing wrong when somebody falls, they need to get up on their own, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And some people may call it rude and tough love. Call it what it is. But this is what I call what is wrong with today's society. Everybody's always fixing everything for everybody. Nobody's learning anything what they've done wrong. But I totally agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. And mind you, there's a time for certain lessons, right? So
yes, absolutely.
In the middle of a crisis and their life is threatened, and it's like, you're not going to stand by and say, well, you just walked out in front of the car and like deal with the consequences. No, if like use your head too, right? So you have to pick and choose certain things. But there are a lot of people out there, and I was one once in my life, that I would try to make the lives as easy as possible for the people I loved. I didn't want them to suffer. And I had a brother who was an alcoholic, and I made excuse after excuse after excuse, and I rationalized. And, it's called tough love, not because of how it's tough on the person who's receiving it. It's tough for the person who's doing it. It's tough to love somebody with those reasonable boundaries, limitations, holding them accountable for the choices and their actions and the consequences of those. It's hard to watch somebody like, yeah, I know. It would have been a lot easier if you didn't drink, but now you got to clean up this, day old, crusty old, yucky stuff. Sorry.
Right.
Maybe I'll think twice about drinking that much next time. Not my problem. And by the way, if you can't get the stain out, you're buying me a new rug.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. So I wanted to read one piece of channeled writing. I asked Spirit what would be nice to kind of share tonight energetically. And so my book, again, which is available on Amazon, it is called A Portal to Potential, and it is filled with inspired writing from Spirit, as well as 2 whole chapters that are devoted to questions and thoughts to help anyone who reads it get in touch with what is your life purpose and what are some kinds of things that you can be thinking about so that you have a better quality and experience on this journey on this side of the veil. And so this particular channeled writing is called The Way. Show me the way, your spirit calls out. To whom are you calling and why? Have you forgotten the truth of who you are? Awaken, remember, and choose to forget no more. You are a child of destiny, a spirit of the light. You are a soul on your journey of exploration and expansion, returning to self and enhancing your being by the process of who you are and how you have lived and loved, and by what you have learned along the way. So
that's really nice.
So we have oh gosh, is it almost, oh my gosh, it's almost 8 o'clock. The time just
I know, time flies, right?
So I do have 2 little promos I'm doing on Halloween, y'all. If you're not going out trick-or-treating, I'm going to be offering a 2-hour Zoom workshop on how to be in touch with your intuition and read tarot cards. And it's only $25 a pop because I want people to come and learn and feel I didn't want the price to be a barrier. And all the information is on aletheajacob.com. So if you want to come join us on Halloween. If you're not out trick-or-treating, let's come do something spooky cool together. And then in November, 8th, 9th, and 10th, I am co-leading a retreat in Sedona. And so
Awesome.
That's going to be on developing your spiritual gifts and enhancing your intuition as well. But it's going to be a deep dive and very personalized. So that all the information on that is also on my website. So were there any questions that popped up today that you happen to notice there, Grizz?
No, everybody's saying you come a packing. You're wonderful and charming. They love it. A lot of compliments. They love your show. So no,
great.
it's all fantastic. And it's been great. And we always love having you, and we're always excited seeing you on the show and on the network. So yeah, cool. It's been fantastic.
I really appreciate the opportunity because, I'm sure you can feel it. And I imagine your viewers can feel it too. This is part of my purpose, right? Is to share stories, to share information, to bring forth whatever spirit wants to share on that night, but to encourage the world today. We need that encouragement. We need the light. We need people, we all need the reminders. And, it's funny. They say, you teach what you need to learn the most. So I'm like, you really? I'm talking all the time about shining the light. I guess I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm like, all right, yeah, I got it. I'm trying to shine. I promise. But I just feel like I'm a prophet with a little p these days. And I just want people to wake up to the beauty of their soul, to the purpose that's there for them. If they can just kind of slow down a little bit from the chaos of the day-to-day world, right, and tune in a little bit and understand that there are so many benevolent forces in the universe that are rooting for us and here to help us. And to circle right back around to how we started, there are loved ones in spirit that will give us those little signs of encouragement, that will let us know, hey, I'm with you. And you know who else comes to us? Not just the people, but our animals. Right? Those dogs and cats and guinea pigs and bunnies and horses and anything that you shared a connection and love with, that spiritual connection, they're going to come too and check in. Are you okay, Mom? You okay, Dad? You doing all right? They come back. They'll send their friends to you to be like, hey, she needs some help. You go to her. Right? So we live in this amazing universe that is as benevolent and beautiful and kind as we allow it to be for ourselves, as we cultivate peace, as we work to give out that kindness and we share our light and we share our blessings with others, our cup is so filled by spirit because they're like, oh, you're giving this good stuff away. It's kind of like imagine if you were an entity of a charity and you're doing all these good works and people see the good works. Well, more people donate to your charity, right? So it's like the money comes flowing in so the charities can do even more work. Well, right. Spirituality, our energy, our love, our focus is the currency of the universe. So when they see us doing these random acts of kindness, shining our light, doing our best to be benevolent and helping others and encouraging others and helping them develop their gifts and giving of ourselves to them, they're like, oh, you're giving? Yeah. Here's some more. Fill up your tank. And you don't do it to get a full tank. You do it because it brings you joy, because it gives you purpose, because it makes you feel good. I don't know about you, Grizz, but I love when I find a gift that I know somebody's going to like, and I give it to that person, and they're like, oh my God, you remembered. I love this. Or right. You knew that. It makes me so happy, right? And I was giving it. It's like, yeah. Because watching that joy and seeing for yourself that impact that you're having on the lives of others, that positive impact, there is nothing that feels better than that. So I absolutely encourage people to go for it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time, we got another show. So tune in for that. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure.
All right.
So coast to coast, around the
See you
world.
next week.
We'll see you tonight. Bye-bye.
I'll be home next week.
That's right. Safe travels. Good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Bye.